Good morning, everyone. How are you this morning? Well, it's morning if you're in beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and if not, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's probably a bit towards afternoon or evening. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you with me here today. If you're here for the replay, remember to hit hashtag replay. It's always wonderful to catch up with you and to say g'day. This morning, I want to talk to you about how to repair our, let's just grab the infographic for you, how to repair our attachment style. Now, the reason I want to talk to you about this is because all the research done around attachment styles, and there is so much information available out there about what happens between the mother and the baby, etc., etc., etc. Now, you can research attachment styles, you can do a quiz about what your attachment style is, and so much more. But my aim this morning isn't to go into your particular attachment style. It's so that you gain understanding of what's happening for you around that. My aim is more to give you some information, not everything, but some information so that you can go, right, I can see where that impacts my life. I can understand what's happening, and therefore I can work towards repairing it. Now, for those who are new here, my name's Linda. I'm a trauma recovery consultant, and I work with complex trauma and work to help educate people because so much of what's out there is new. It's only in the last 5 years that scientists have put all this information in around the brain, and it's so crucial to us understanding that it's a psychological wound, it's not a mental disorder, okay? So therefore we can do a lot to heal, to recover our lives, to recover who we are and what we're here to do. Now, it's really, really crucial that we understand that we will be in recovery, and we may be in recovery for the rest of our lives because of what's happened right from, for some of us, even in the womb, because when our mother has unresolved trauma, it impacts the cortisol levels and which cross the placenta, which impact our genealogy as well. So it can go right down, and in my family it does go right down to that level because I can actually trace back the lack of emotional bond in 3 generations prior to me. But that's to do with the attachment side of things. But it impacts our mental health as well, coming down through the generations. So today, I want to be able to give you some information to help you work towards having a secure attachment. And in doing that, when we have a secure attachment style within ourselves, then we're less likely to make relationship choices that are less than healthy. We can understand that we can see people who are not healthy, and we can learn. We can actually sit down and learn healthy boundaries for us and for others in our lives. But first of all, we want to work towards having a secure attachment style. First of all, we want to know that we can feel safe within ourselves. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we've got to recognise when we feel unsafe, and that heads us into understanding when we get triggered, what the triggers are, how we can work towards overcoming the triggers. And I don't want you to avoid the triggers because that isolates us. Let's face it. If we start avoiding triggers, then we're going to isolate. But what we can learn to do is manage them. We can't ever predict when they're going to happen. I can tell you that from experience. We'll never predict when they're going to happen. But what we can do is work towards managing when it does happen. We also need to feel trust within ourselves. So when you've come through a lot of relationships and people have in the process of those relationships, people and the circumstances leave you with a lack of trust, then the first place that you've got to go is developing trust within yourselves and developing trust that you can trust the decisions that you make. So when I lost everything, I had to rebuild everything, and one of the things that I had to come to sit down and examine was, could I trust the decisions that I was making? Okay, and it's an ever-evolving process, trust is, but we can do it. Okay, we can reach a point where we can trust the decisions we're making. Plus, we can trust and take risks with the decisions we're making. Not risks in relationships. We've got to work through and communicate in relationships to understand whether we can trust so much around a relationship. But we want to know that we're capable of trusting ourselves first. So a lot of people deal with narcissism, and we've all dealt with people who are so selfish that it's all about them. And, because they have this closed off mind where it's all about them, they never see how much they hurt others. So we want to know, and then comes back and then it takes away from us all the time. And until we understand that their heart is so broken and bitter and they keep taking it out on us, we actually think that we're the problem, especially if we come out of childhood with what we talked about yesterday, the dark triad and the lying guard. Okay? When we come out of childhood with those four things, we're going to believe that how that person is acting as an adult, then we're to blame. And in the end, it strips everything from us, and we come to believe that we can't even trust the decisions we're making. So in order to begin having a healthy relationship, it starts with us first, and it starts with us rebuilding trust in ourselves around the decisions that we make for ourselves and our life, okay? And remember that all of this that happened, that built into the complex trauma in our life was interpersonal. There were other people involved. So most of us get everything stripped away from us because we haven't had the information till now as to what we need to look out for, what we need to do, what happens at a neurological, biological level, etc., etc. So before we go into interpersonal relationships and rebuilding our ability to have them, we first want to have a relationship within ourselves that we know that we can trust the decisions we're making. We know that we're going to put ourselves into safe situations, okay? Now, one of the first things that we need to do to repair our attachment style is have the ability to put our feelings into words, okay? You might think, well, what's that got to do with anything? But when we have an external and internal process, okay, so the external is what we show the world and the internal is us, the real us who we've had to hide, then we need to learn to put language around what's happening for us internally. You can Google a chart with a list of emotions on there, which can help you go, right, okay, which emotion is it that I'm feeling today? And when I put that into words, then I'm able to convey what's happening for me. And that's really important, because if you can't communicate what's happening for you emotionally, then how are you going to be in a relationship, or how are you going to know that you're in a relationship where you're respected and valued and how you feel is important? How are you going to know that? You won't. So we've got to put the effort in to put the feelings into words. But as mothers or fathers, as we parent, we actually teach this to our children as well. And it was one of the most important things that I taught my children as they were growing up, because I knew that I came out of my family not having any language around my emotions, okay? We didn't even talk about them. It just wasn't the done thing back then. And it sounds so funny to say that in the age of the internet, where, we connect globally, that we've come through generations where we didn't have any language for our emotions at all, and we didn't communicate those emotions. And that leaves us continually in relationships where we can go into relationships that are re-traumatizing. That's the simplest way I can convey that. And we don't want to do that anymore, okay? We don't. We want to be able to put language around how we feel in order that we can communicate. One of the recent things that happened for me is my youngest son, who's 20. Yeah, I always have to think about the age. We were out shopping and we had a disagreement. I was super tired, but because I've taught them how to communicate, we were driving home and we had to go to a couple of other places, and he says, "No, Mum, we're going to sit down and sort this out." Well, obviously we're seated in the car, but he started asking me questions about, okay, when I said that, did you feel this? And I'd think about it. Was I actually feeling it? No, I'd say no. But what it did for me was help me examine what was it I was really feeling at that time. And in the end, what happened was, because we both, and I do this with my kids as well, what we were able to do then was to connect to what was really happening for me, what was really happening for him in that moment where the disagreement happened. And then once the communication was opened up, because we had language around what we felt, and I was able to actually identify what was happening for me on a deeper level, then after that, we were just fine. I can't even remember what the discussion was. I just remember the process, because the process is what helps clear the air. And we just got on with the rest of our day. And this is what we need to be able to do as human beings, is have these conversations. And it does help repair us, because we then know, we have experience that it's possible to have communication and work through problems together. But first of all, just us, we need to put language around it. And a good thing to do with that is to journal. I do journal nearly every night now, but I did spend years journaling out my feelings so that I could get used to the emotions, so I could put the words around it. If I didn't have language, I'd look for language, etc., etc. It helps to get to know my internal dialogue, not just the dialogue I'd show the rest of the world, okay? We want to connect experience to meaning. When I first read this, I went, how does that impact us? Well, it actually involves putting feelings into words, but then when we're having the experience, we want to be able to convey what it means for us, because each experience we have, even though we could be in the same place at the same time as somebody else, what it means for them will be something totally different. So we want to be able to convey what it means for us. What did this experience mean for us? And as we do this, it actually helps us file away that experience into our hippocampus. So it goes from the amygdala, from just, the whole sensory input, and it gives it meaning, which gets filed away in the hippocampus. And when we do that, we actually create a whole bunch of new memories too, which we can have access to, which brings joy, okay? Meaning, giving meaning to our life. So not our life as in the whole big picture, and we're looking back and go, oh, my life has meaning. We're looking for the smaller moments where we're going to say, yeah, I can actually verbalise what meaning this has for me today. And even as parents, we can sit down and go, all right, I want to look for the meaning in the experience today as well. And sometimes we can be in a place that is totally different to us, and we actually want to sit down and examine what is the meaning in this experience for me. And it will be something totally deeper than what we're looking at the outside for. Too often we just look around on the outside and go, oh yeah, okay, I can see that, rather than sitting down and really exposing ourselves to the feeling and the sensory input, and also what it means for us deeply. That's the best way I can put it. Looking for the deeper meaning. And we need to do that so we don't just live life on it in, a shallow existence. It also helps us put language around the deeper parts of ourselves, of our attachment style, okay? And we need that in order to help us in our recovery process. Okay, we want to be able to identify what triggers anxiety. We may not always know what triggers the anxiety, but what we want to do is put language around each time we are triggered in order that we can begin to understand and identify it within ourselves. So we're not looking for the external trigger, okay? So we're not going, oh, I was out shopping and a loud noise happened and that triggered me. We're not looking for that side of it. What we're looking for is how we felt, what we were thinking, what the whole sensory input, and specifically our emotions, what was happening for me in the moments before I was triggered. So if you watch the video I did on Sunday about my whole experience going to a new church building, sitting there, being triggered but feeling the love, etc., etc., you'll understand the whole experience, giving meaning to the experience, because I was aware of what was happening for me deeply inside of me, even though my brain and body had been triggered, and I'm sitting there absolutely perspiring profusely like I was having a shower in it. But what I was able to do was sit there in my heart space and just feel the absolute overwhelming love in that environment. But to take it back to the early days of examining what was happening and what was triggering my anxiety, I had to learn to listen to my thoughts. I had to learn to feel my feelings, okay? And it's challenging to want to do that because we learned, or we were programmed as children, not to feel them because they were overwhelming. All right, so we've got to break it down in my day-to-day life now as into what it is that's impacting me internally. Okay, so that would be a key question that you could ask yourself each night. What is it that's impacting me internally? And when you get into your internal dialogue, then you're going to be able to understand yourself more deeply. And it does begin to heal, restore our attachment style. So once upon a time, I used to walk around and I was so filled with fear that it was so easy to be triggered. I walked around triggered all the time, basically, in hypervigilance. So I had to begin to do this internal process to break it down, right? Because when we break it down, we can then teach our brain that it doesn't have to have the fear response in everything that we do. We teach our brain that it's okay that I'm feeling this way and it's manageable. I can work out how to manage this situation, okay? And that makes a whole different ball game for us when it comes to anxiety and reducing the level of it in our lives. So we want to integrate our thoughts and feelings into an order instead of feeling like it's chaos on the inside and I'm presenting like it's calm on the outside, all right? And I know that you can do this, all right? I absolutely know that you can do this. If you have any questions or comments or need a bit of clarification around something, please feel welcome to ask. It's not a problem at all. We're all learning. We're on this massive learning journey together with complex PTSD. Okay? And remember that from childhood developmental trauma, our brains developed in a whole different way. So we need to be has a fear response automatically without us even knowing it, whereas somebody whose brain didn't experience trauma, their first thought around everything is this is manageable. So we can then develop that attitude and thought process within ourselves. Okay, I am having an anxiety attack, but this is manageable. This is manageable because I can work out what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and how to integrate them and where to go from there. All right, have the most wonderful day and gorgeous evening, and feel free to leave your questions and I will get back to you ASAP. Remember, we're the turtles. We win the race all the way. The hare lost the race because they were in too much of a hurry. Now, blessings and dreams, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Bye for now.